The Toronto real estate market isn't in crash territory anymore. That's probably already happened. But what's happening now is a rebalancing. But the balance looks very different depending on what type of property you own. In September of 2025, the number of transactions that took place was up from at the same point last year, but there's still a lot on the market, specifically condos. And if these trends continue into the rest of the fall, prices will continue to adjust, but it all depends on what type of property you own. My name is Tom Storey. I'm a real estate agent here in the city of Toronto. Thank you for watching this video. We're going to go through the September 2025 numbers, go through everything, show you what is going on in the stats, and I'll give you a little bit of kind of ground level perspective on what I've seen with our own clients. If you enjoy these type of videos, make sure to give it a like, get subscribed to the channel. We just passed 20,000 subscribers, which is really, really cool. So thank you guys. And if you want to book a call with our team, you can do that in the first link in the description. All right, let's jump right into things. So we're going to look at the standard year over year stuff, and then we're going to get into actual prices. So let's start with sales volume. So sales volume, just over 5,500 transactions. That is up about 8.5% from September of 2024. Okay, so positive news, right? But the new listings were also up about 4%. And then the active listings is the number that we've continued to see this trend really through almost all of 2025. I guess it kind of started in March with the tariff talk. Just the active listings. The absorption is just not there because so much of the market is a type of property that used to be interesting to investors and they are no longer participating, but we will jump into that in a second. So your active listings still at 29,000. That number has held like around there for several months. Your average sale price is down 4.7% from at the same point last year. And the days on market numbers are just naturally going to be higher as well. All right, let's take a look at the different property types. Detached 416 area code, still almost $1.7 million. You got your semi-detached at 1.2 million, your townhouses at 929, and your condos at 681. All four of these numbers continue to be somewhat similar so far through 2025. Then when you look at the year over year numbers, that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. So your detached was only down less than 1% year over year. This is like kind of my problem with the average prices that we're using here is last month when I did this exact same video, the headline of the video in every news article was detached homes are down 10% because this number was 10%. Like, is it now that much different? No, it depends on what type of property sold. What are the price points? How many transactions actually took place? And that's why I'm going to show you benchmark price in a second here. So we can have a kind of a better understanding of truly like, is the same house only worth 1% less? No, probably a bit more than that, but probably not 10%. Same idea with semis. Last month, semis looked nothing like this. And now it's, the headline is going to be semi-detached homes are down almost 9%. Again, probably not actually the truth. And then you go to condos, they're only down 4%, where I know like for a fact, the same condo is certainly down more than 4% from where it was last year. So just want to kind of put that out there so you can get my perspective on these are great for headline numbers, but you really have to dig into it. It is so specific on the micro markets, the specific areas on what is going on. This does not mean your property is worth exactly this much less than at the same point in September. What actually matters is what just sold down your street. So I just have my little rant on average price. Let's take a look at the benchmark price. So I've now taken these four categories. So your top line here at the most expensive price point, that's your detached house. And you can see in January 2025, we're sitting at about almost 1.6 million. We're now just below 1.5 million. So there has been a decrease in price. That's very clear what's happening so far. Not the huge crashing numbers that we saw going back to what's happened from the peak of 2022, but we have seen things really cool off this year as the inventory has built up. The red line is your single family attached, or we would call that a semi-detached property. Same idea. January, just over 1.2. Right now, just under 1.2. So not a significant change. That's because there are less semi-detached homes and they are still typically in the most amount of demand. That's kind of what your upsizer wants to be when they're selling their condo and getting into the freehold housing market. A lot of them want to buy a semi because it's less expensive than detached, still gets you into the neighborhood you want to be until you outgrow the house because you have two kids or a third kid. This next line here, I couldn't do the numbers in this because it was getting in the way of these other ones, but you can still tell it's the same thing. This is for townhouses. it's dropped off a little bit this year, started at like roughly 800,000. Now it's like 760,000. And then your blue line here at the bottom is condos. So you can see that condo drop off has happened as well. So most property types this year have seen slow decreases. And the reason why this has happened is because the inventory has built up and the inventory has remained higher for a period of time. But this line here is probably more representative to what like your house is doing compared to different times on the chart, or your condo or your townhouse, just to give you this other side of the perspective as well. Now let's look at home sales. So what we had talked about when we started this video is like, we had almost 5,600 sales in the 416 area code. That was higher than last year. It was higher than the year before. It was higher than 2022. These 2021 numbers are always just going to look ridiculous every time I do this. That's never happening again either, or at least for like 25 years, or unless something crazy happens in the economy. That ain't happening again. But we did have the most amount of sales, going back to 2022. This was also very similar for what we saw with the July numbers, and there was a lot of kind of positive conversation about that. Does this matter? Kind of a little bit. It's good to see that more transactions are taking place, but I'll show you what's actually going on with the inventory levels in a second here. This is just to give you total city of Toronto, all property types, how many sales are actually taking place in the city of Toronto. Because going back to this here, I know this says Toronto home sales. What it should say is GTA. So my mistake on that. This is all the different areas that the Toronto Real Estate Board actually looks at. If you just look at the 416 area code, you can see the sales volume is closer to like 2,000 units per month, right? So you can see we had a bit of a trend up. We slowed down over the summer. August dipped off, as it always kind of does, and September jumped up again. So more sales than last month. Shouldn't really mean anything there. Of course there is. It's September versus August. Still going back, like June is always a pretty good month, but July was that like weird, surprising month for whatever reason. Like more sales in July than we had in September. So that's one of the many reasons you might say, well, yeah, the market, it hasn't bottomed out yet or hasn't bounced back officially yet because you can't have more sales in July than you had in September. I think that's like a pretty fair point. If we look at the condo side of things, just the condo market, this is also just to give you an idea on the sales volume, very similar to what we saw trend lines for the city of Toronto as well. We saw a bit of a jump up as we started the year. The July numbers were really, really strong, dipped off in August and jumped up a little bit in September, but nothing really new to report on the sales volume. This number could have been a little bit higher. It's September, right? Like it's the fall market. We're supposed to see more transactions comparative to the summer. July was just kind of a weird outlier. Maybe it was just a spring market starting, a little bit later. If you look at all the active listings for sale in the city of Toronto, this is how it splits up at the end of September. So your condo apartments still sitting at 56% of the market, plus your condo townhouses, another 7%. So you add these two together, massive, massive part of the overall inventory. This has remained the case. It's been like this for 2.5 years now. Your detached properties, 27%, your semis, 5.6%, and your attached row townhouse, just under 3%. What about the inventory levels, the months of inventory? Did the market get better or did it get worse? So I'm just showing you versus August here. We're just going to do a month over month because I could do the year over year, but let's talk about like the last 60 days, not 12 months ago. So your condo inventory went from, 6.5 to 6.3. Nothing to report here other than the fact it did come down a little. Now, why did it come down? Probably a mix of a few things. There was more sales versus what happened in August, but some were just taken off the market as well. So I think it's a little bit of mix of that. You take it off, the inventory is gone, and it's not counted at the end of the month, regardless of if it's sold or not. Your condo townhouses dropped off a little bit. Detached properties, again, a slight drop off. Semis, slight drop off. Weirdly, attached row townhouse bumped up a little bit. There's so few of these that sell compared to the rest of the property types. I'm not overly concerned about that either on either direction. Now, none of this is really exciting to look at. It's like, okay, they all kind of dropped off a little bit. It's going to be an ongoing trend. If every month they drop down a little bit, then eventually it will get to a tipping point that demand starts picking up because there's just not enough of the supply that we actually need. I think obviously for condos, this red line here is where it goes into real buyer's market territory. We've been there for a long, long time. And that's why you're seeing not only have condo prices dropped, which is clear, but just the interest for them, the demand for them is not there like it used to be. And that's why this inventory level has really built up way higher than the rest of the market. Detached, still kind of a balanced out market generally for the city of Toronto. And semis, technically are still in a seller's market. And that's why you see in great neighborhoods in Toronto, a semi-detached house can still go to the market at $999, get 10 bids and sell it for 1.3, because there's just not as many of them to choose from versus the rest of the market. There is your September 2025 Toronto real estate market review. I hope you found that helpful. September was a very, very busy month for us and our clients. We actually got a lot of buyer clients purchasing properties in September that had been kind of cautiously waiting and looking for a long time and decided this was the time to jump in. Definitely based on active listings and new listings and sales, and you putting it all together, there's no clear sign yet that the market has bottomed in price. I think it probably bottomed in sales volume. I think sales volume probably bottomed off, but we still need a bit more encouragement month after month, probably heading into next year, where we start to see a point in time where it's like, okay, prices are probably going to hold a little bit better now, but I'll let you know when the data shows us that, but we won't know until 3 months after it happens anyways. Thank you for watching. My name is Tom Storey, and remember, home is where your story begins.